Hi, this is Shayla with Whole Motherhood, and you are listening to Moms Learning with Moms. Today we have Abby with us, and she's my friend for about 5 or 6 years, 7 years, I don't know. I've been here in Indiana for 7 years, so it's around that time. And it's interesting that some of the best advice I ever get from motherhood and mothering and parenting is usually just from listening to other people's experiences, seeing what I can learn from it, and gaining compassion and understanding. And that is a lot of what I think we're going to get when we talk to Abby today. Her experiences is different in how she became a mother. She was single and then she got married and was working, and just a lot of different experiences that she has. So we're going to start by just having her tell us about her story.
Yeah, I think I try to hit every aspect of the spectrum I can in motherhood, right? Yeah, so basically, just background, I grew up in the church. I grew up a member of that. I was kind of the golden child, which comes with its own mantle of pressure and everything. But basically, my sophomore year of college, I transferred out to Utah to play golf. Met a boy. Um, Hindsight's always 2020. It was a rebound. But it just I am proof that it only takes one time to get pregnant. So here I am, 19 years old, out of state. All of my family is in Indiana, except I have an aunt and uncle that lived about 2 hours away from where I was going to school. And I find myself pregnant with a boy that I don't want to get married to. So it was earth shattering, to be honest, just feeling such disappointment and despair, feeling like I let my family down, and they took it really, really, really hard. And I almost get a little emotional just thinking about it from a mother's standpoint now, and having a child come to me just heartbroken that she's disappointed them, and had a baby out of wedlock, and that obviously doesn't align with our beliefs in the church. We try to wait till we're married, but I just kept putting myself in that situation for it to happen. So it was definitely, I look back at it now as I'm just so grateful that I took the opportunity to grow from it and to learn from my experiences instead of letting it just spiral me down. But basically at that point at 19, I still had a semester left to go. I was still playing college golf. I was still traveling. I didn't tell anyone except one teammate that knew that I was pregnant. So I remember waking up for 6 a.m. workouts, feeling nauseous, but putting a face on. I was like, nope, we're just going to keep going. And carrying my bag, playing 36 holes. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but it's exhausting. Especially in that first trimester, right? Yeah. But I think it was a tough journey. I think it's easy to judge people when they make those kind of mistakes, but the journey for the person is really trying, and it's kind of lonely, just because you feel like you don't want everyone to know. At that moment, I hadn't decided what I was going to do. I had someone very near and dear to me offer the option of abortion. That was not something that I had ever thought of. And I'm so grateful that I didn't choose that. That wasn't a good match for me. It didn't align with what I believed at all. And then so my next two options were to keep the baby or to put her up for adoption. And it wasn't an easy decision. I had talked to my oldest daughter, Lily. I talked to her biological dad, and we kind of hashed out. I remember him offering, should we just get married? And I was like, no, we should not. I think that is maybe the worst option we could do. I appreciate his willingness to kind of step up to the plate, but that was not in the stars for us. But it was difficult because I was a member of the church, and the church is very family oriented. And I was getting lots of counsel and guidance and advice from people I loved and admired and respected, that what was best for my child was to grow up in a family with a mom and a dad. And I wholeheartedly support that. But as a 19-year-old girl who is pregnant and had all of these dreams that have now changed drastically, I just really struggled with it. Thankfully, our church has LDS Family Services. And so while I was going to college and playing golf and trying to mend relationships with my parents, who were trying to be supportive from far off, but still dealing with their grieving and their disappointment, and kind of in a waiting game where they didn't really have a lot of control of what I was going to do, but wanted to be there to support me. I finally decided to go to LDS Family Services, and I'm so grateful for that. So I did a lot of one-on-one counseling, and then I did a group counseling. I think the group was every other week, or it might have been weekly. That was like 12 years ago, so it's hard to remember. But it was just interesting to be, every time we went to group, basically I had women who were there because they were pregnant and they weren't married, and they were trying to decide whether they were going to keep their baby or whether they were going to put their baby up for adoption. And some of them had already made the decision. Some had made the decision at a prior pregnancy. And I'm sitting there with girls from age 15 to 24, 23, I think was the oldest one. And it was tough. I struggled a lot. I would listen to stories. They'd have visitors come in and give talks and talk about their relationship with the birth mother and how that worked for them and what it looked like, the different dynamics that you could choose. You can be open and be involved in the adoption and still in your child's life, or you could, like hard line, I got to just cut contact. And so it was interesting, and I appreciated gaining perspective of what it could look like for me and what would fit best.
That's really interesting that they gave you kind of a look of what these different options might look like.
Yeah, and it was great. I vividly remember there was one girl, she was a little younger than I was. This was her second pregnancy, and she had kept her first child and had chosen to give up her second. And I remember in that moment, I think my initial reaction was kind of like, what? Because that just seems so backwards to me. And then I learned so much of a lesson of how not to judge and to realize what people go through and that I don't understand. And as soon as you hear their stories, and you're just like, oh, it makes so much sense. And I just felt like I've gained a lot of compassion for people and how they make decisions. I actually had a couple picked out for my Lily. Lily's biological dad and I had met with this couple. We had dinner with them. We talked to them quite frequently. We were feeling pretty good about it, but I just had this hesitation. And I don't know how else, just this doubt, this lingering doubt. And I couldn't distinguish between if it was fear, if it was, just that's not what I'm supposed to do. And again, I'm 19 and I don't feel like I can talk to anybody except this beautiful counselor who I just am so grateful for, because she just let me kind of word vomit to her. And she's like, yeah, whatever you just, she just, I really am grateful. She made that place just so safe for us to be able to express whatever we were feeling. So I'm really appreciative of that. But yeah, I had a couple picked out. We thought that's what we were going to do. And then I found out that they had an opportunity to get another baby. They wanted to go see, and they had told Lily's biological dad, hey, don't tell Abby, but we're going to go visit this other baby. And thankfully, my daughter's biological dad did tell me that that's what they said. And I instantly just went, oh my gosh, they're already keeping secrets. And at 19 and trying to entrust my child with somebody, it was difficult. And I understand their perspective. They were trying to protect me. They were trying to protect what they had going, but also protect their situation because they wanted a baby and they couldn't have one. And so years down the road, I understood a lot better. But in that moment, the trust was just gone. And then UVU, Utah Valley University, had a big event. And I can't for the life of me remember what it was called, but it was so impactful. Basically, they took the gym and they sectioned off a part where you would walk into the back room and you could, in your own personal space, design a t-shirt. And on that t-shirt, you could express whatever you were feeling about trauma and any kind of abuse that you had experienced. And then once it was done, somebody else would go and hang it up. So it was still anonymous. And I remember just walking through and reading these people, like their personal experience of different kinds of trauma that they had experienced, mainly dealing with different kinds of abuse. And my heart just ached for them. And I called my mom. I'm getting emotional. I'm so sorry. I called my mom afterwards, just sobbing. And I said, I can't even tell you how many shirts they said no one would believe me, or I couldn't tell anyone. And my heart broke for them that they felt that way. And I so badly just felt this instant protection for my baby that wasn't born yet, that was really just a pivotal moment for me. One, deciding that no way was I giving her up. And that's a personal decision for me. That is not going to fit everybody, obviously, but she was going to be mine and I was going to have this deep connection with her. And so it's funny when you and I were talking before, Shayla, and you were like, what makes your parenting different? You know, like, what is it that you do? Why do you do it? And I was like, oh gosh, I don't know. But the more I've thought about it this week, it was that moment where I was like, hands down, my children and I are going to have a connection where they know that they can come to me and that no matter what, I'm going to be there and I'm going to trust them and I'm going to love them and we're going to get through it. So I appreciate you asking that question because that helped me really realize what a foundation it built for the relationship that I want to have with my children and the kind of mom that I want to be.
Abby,
Yeah.
how close to when she was born did you make that decision?
Yes. So I made that decision. Let's see. I think it was March and she was born in October. I'm not very good with math. So got like less than 6 months,
Okay,
6 months-ish. But so it was still pretty fresh. It may have even been April, somewhere around there, towards the middle to end of the semester. But
what part did her biological dad play in the birth and any sort of support for you?
yeah, I have no ill feelings towards her biological dad at all. We have made amends since everything, but we were young and we didn't know what was going on. And I just knew that moment that I decided to keep Lily, that I needed to be home where my support was. And so he was in Utah and we discussed that. And I told him, I said, listen, I'm going to keep her. That obviously terrified him. Which is understandable because he was in the military and he was at school and I put him in a tough place and I understand that, but just for me, I had to be home and I had to have my support. And so I moved to Indiana. He stayed at Utah. He was not there for her birth. I think in total, her entire life, he has seen her maybe 3 times. For an accumulative total of maybe 3-4 hours. And a lot of that has to do with distance. And a lot of that has to do that when I met my husband, who is not Lily's biological dad, he ended up adopting her. And so as life happens. And it's just funny that way. We adopted her June 13th, the year before she was turning 4. And 5 weeks almost to the day after she was adopted, Lily's biological dad passed away in a motorcycle accident. And so I ended up finding out over Facebook as it was kind of happening, and he was getting sent over to the hospital. And it was hard. I remember sitting on the couch just bawling because Lily at that time, like I said, she was 3.5, almost 4. And my husband is sitting next to me, who just made this decision to adopt her. We've been married for a couple of years. And I remember turning to him going, I'm so sorry. Like, it's not because I love him or any, like, that was my main concern is how is my current husband going to feel that I'm crying over the man I had my child with. Right. But just the loss that Lily was going to have, that lost opportunity to get to know him, I think was a lot of it. I'm very blessed that her biological dad's mom, so Lily's biological grandma, is just a fabulous woman. I couldn't speak more highly of her. She has been so supportive. For a while, she was just our friend Jana, because Lily didn't know she was adopted. And then she became Nana, obviously, when we told Lily that she was adopted and that she did have a biological grandma in her life. So they still keep in contact. She calls us, they FaceTime. They're real cute. So we're grateful for her.
Abby, I want to go back. Is there anything specifically that you could just recap of if I was going to help another young woman in this situation of being pregnant? Are there some things that you would just really advise them to do?
Yeah. I advise, if you are ever in that situation, or if you have a child come to you with that situation, as a parent, love them, support them, and help them find resources that they need. But as a woman being pregnant and trying to make that decision, even if you think you have your mind set up, I truly just think there's so much worth and value in looking at all options completely and wholeheartedly before you make a decision. Because I know that now, going back through every resource and looking at every avenue, I look back with absolutely no regrets. I know that for me, I made the right decision. But had I not gone through all of those paths, and had I just picked one and just out of, instant gut reaction, I don't know, like, I think I would have always wondered. And so I just would strongly encourage everybody to always, ask for advice, look at resources, check it all out. And if you're religious, pray about it, fast about it, talk to your church leaders about it. Because in the end, the decision does lie with you. And I did pray a lot about it. I wanted to make the decision that Heavenly Father wanted me to make. And so the more knowledgeable that you can be about all those options, the more confident you will feel in the decision that you make.
How long before you were able to talk about it? Is this something that you would have been comfortable talking about even during the process? Is that something that you needed, was people to talk to about it, or were you more private then?
In that moment, I think you feel judgment whether it's coming to you or not from people. You just automatically assume it's there. So I did a lot personally, unless I was in a specific group with people who were going through the same thing I was, or my one teammate that I would talk to who was fabulous, and would just sit and listen. But, being 19 years old, my mom tried so hard to do her best at pushing aside the emotions she was feeling of having a daughter who was about to have a baby, unexpectedly, but also wanting to be there for me. It was hard for me to go to her and not just constantly feel disappointment. Now, did she give that to me? No,
Hmm.
but it was my own perception. And so I think it's hard not to personalize everything that people do, but just if you're able to find the strength and the courage and the clarity to be able to step back, talking with people helps so much. And it's not even so much what they say back to you as it is just voicing what you're thinking. Because I think we've all had that, where we've had this thought, and then as soon as we say it, we're like, oh, that doesn't sound right. No. um Maybe it's just me, but
Well, that's it.
I think it does depend on your personality, though. There are people who are very private. um I usually, I'm not very private. I'm pretty open about everything that I go through. Almost everything. There are very few things that I don't talk about, but I think a lot of that has to do with, because I think we learn from other people's experiences, which is why I think what you do is great, because you listen to what people go through and you take tidbits and you're like, never thought of that, or oh, that makes sense. And you can avoid things, you can find new things just by listening to other people's experiences.
So a lot of that compassion and understanding you felt like people could give through listening and
Yeah, because you don't need somebody to tell you what to do during those times. That's not what you're wanting. I think internally you think, I just want somebody to tell me what to do. Please tell me what to do. Um, but as soon as somebody would tell me you need to do this, it was like a wall would just go straight up, and I'd almost want to run the opposite way.
mm,
And so I would suggest anybody that's talking to someone trying to make that is just asking questions and showing support. Well, what are you thinking of doing? Okay, what makes you think that? And it's more of providing that person in that journey opportunities to hear questions that are going to help them better self analyze and self evaluate how they do feel about it. And
mm,
so, yeah.
really good. That's really good. Anything else you can think of that would help someone or those with that person trying to help them through it?
I think just unconditional love and support no matter what. And I show all of my emotion on my face usually. Um, it's hard not to, but um, being open and honest. So I've even had times where people have said something, and you kind of do like I think if you get that from the person going through that journey of that reaction of like, oh, I didn't like how you responded to that, being open and just being like, I'm sorry, that wasn't a great reaction of mine. Explain to me what you mean. But just
Mm,
the people going through that journey, they already feel alone and they already are struggling. And it's a huge weight, because it's not only your life you're impacting, but
mm,
um, a sweet little baby that has yet to come. And we don't know the potential is endless. And so you want so badly to make the decision. So really just understanding that um, whatever you do will be right for you, as long as you're making the right steps in that journey to make the decision that you're really contemplating. And I think the fact that anybody is taking the time to contemplate it is amazing. Women who have the courage to recognize and understand that having a baby is not going to be great for them or that baby in that situation, and they choose to bless another couple's life, is amazing. And I have the utmost respect for them, because it's just
mm.
beautiful that they can see that perspective of what's best. And it's something only that sweet little mama can decide. She knows what she can provide and what she can't. I think in a world where finally mental health is a big thing and we can talk about it more, it's huge. And it's just like on the plane, you have to take care of yourself before you can help somebody else. And having an understanding and a grasp on what you can do, but also not being fearful. Um, no one's ever ready to be a mom, right?
That is so
Um,
true. Okay. It is.
So, and just people that are supporting people in that journey, just understanding that it's a lot and the person's going through a lot, and that just love them, support them, and be a listening ear, a sounding block.
I love that. That's so good. I think we all need to hear that in any situation people are confronted with and faced with. It's so much of how are you dealing with this? What are the decisions that you're thinking about? And becoming aware of how many decisions you do have even in those hard situations.
Absolutely. I think we live in a world where it's just really easy to be like, oh, well, they chose that. That speaks volumes of everything about that person. And I always tell my kids, Lily loves Hamilton. And so I've always worked really hard to teach my kids to look at the other side of what people do and why it happens. And so we love to talk about Aaron Burr, who is painted as the bad guy because obviously he did shoot Alexander Hamilton, right? But Lily and I have talked about the progression that built up to. That it's not like that was his pure intent the entire time, but jealousy overcame and he wasn't able to cope with that. And just, I think you learn so much about a person from their life story that unless you take the time to really look at that, you just miss out on understanding them and why they do that.
I love that. Thank you, Abby. This has been awesome. I think I especially just am aware of more compassion, more understanding towards people and different situations that we all are given and we all choose, but that, again, just compassion that goes into each situation. And we need to strive for that more.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we are going to tell everyone to just keep learning. And thanks again for joining us today. Go ahead and give this a like or subscribe if you would like to. Thanks.